Welcome to Talk Travel with Heather Tate, North Mississippi's podcast for savvy travelers. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is a weekly podcast that airs every Monday on the Shark 102.3 FM radio station based in Ripley, Mississippi, and is then released as a podcast. Travel advisor and travel enthusiast Heather Tate of Whimsical Destinations gives listeners expert travel tips curated through the years of personal and professional experience. By clicking subscribe, you'll have a new travel tip to add to your collection delivered to your podcast library every Monday. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is brought to you by Sun Bear Studio. Sun Bear Studio is a boutique recording studio in the heart of Ripley, Mississippi. When you record with us at Sun Bear Studio, we can mix, master, register, and publish your music, your podcast, or your family story. Email us when you're ready at sunbear@jc.media.
This program was recorded at Sun Bear Studio in Ripley, Mississippi.
Good morning, Northeast Mississippi travelers. This is Heather with Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and I'm so excited to share my adventures and tried and true tips with you, whether you are also a seasoned traveler, a hopeful traveler, or currently an armchair traveler, meaning you're going to follow along with us from home for now. This is our 212th episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and I hope you are not tired of Hawaii yet, because today I'm going to talk to you all about saves versus splurges. So the last 2 weeks, I've told you all about our trip to Kauai, but I left out a very important detail, and that is the cost. I have heard for most of my life how expensive Hawaii is, and I did allude to that the past couple of weeks, but I did not elaborate on that. I remember a classmate going to Hawaii when I was in middle school and coming back to tell us that a hamburger cost $10 at McDonald's. Now, this was in the mid-90s. So to me, that was a big deal. And that's the one thing I remember from that trip that my friend went on when we were in the 7th grade. And, now, just for a comparison, no, I did not go into a McDonald's in Kauai, even though they had them there. And they actually have Aloha over the door. So I did not go into one. But at a regular restaurant, like we went to every day, a burger started at $25. And it did not matter if it was a burger for meat or a veggie burger or a taro burger, which is kind of like a Hawaiian sweet potato, right? So it did not matter. Veggie burger, regular burger, $25 or up. So throughout the week when we were in Hawaii, we experienced regular sticker shock, mostly with food. And it was the food that we realized this is not somewhere that we were going to be able to be for weeks at a time. We were there just the right amount of time for us, our week. But it did not stop us. The food costs did not stop us from getting those daily Mac Nut lattes I told you about, or seeking out the popular shaved ice spots. I mean, I'm used to our family of 4 going to get snow cones or snowballs here for, $15 maybe or less. We did not get shaved ice for the family of 4 for under $40 when we went and all had a shaved ice. But again, best shaved ice I've ever had. I'd pay it again, just couldn't do it every day. So here's what I figured out. I like to think that we found a balance between saves and splurges. And I'm going to share some of those with you this week, because I think you really need to know this when planning your own trip to Hawaii, so you're even more prepared. Like, I knew it was going to be expensive, just like the most expensive trip I think I've taken before Hawaii would have been Ireland. And I was unprepared for how much the food would cost. But it's an island. And when you're on an island, you're going to spend more for most things, especially the food. Anything that has to be imported in, you're going to pay more. But I'm going to share with you how we managed to have what I think of an incredible trip. And did we break the bank? Well, the jury's still out on that. But it could have been worse. That's what I'm going to say. It could have been a lot worse. All right, so here's some things. Okay, let's start with the saves. I think we're going to start with the positive here. So we did fly Delta, So you're thinking, that's not a save. But one of our flights was included. We were able to use miles for. So I, don't know your personal beliefs on credit cards. But if you travel, especially if you are a frequent traveler, it is worth having a credit card that you pay off monthly so you're not accruing interest, but then you're getting the perks, the benefits, such as one of our 4 flights completely paid for except for taxes and fees. That made a difference, paying for 3 instead of 4. The other thing we were able to do is get a really good upgrade for a small price. I think it was $30 a person. We were able to upgrade on the way back for the longest leg of the flight, which was from Kauai to Seattle. We were able to upgrade for $30 a person for Delta Comfort. Totally worth that experience. I would pay it again. Now, where we saved, besides using miles for one of our flights, was we chose to fly to Seattle for our layover. So you do have to look at your options. When you're going to Oahu, like if you're flying to Honolulu, you're going to have more flight options than Kauai, where we went, Lihu. We flew from Atlanta, and we were not going to be able to do nonstop from Atlanta to Kauai. We were either going to have to lay over on Delta in Seattle or LA. Now, the times were better for LA. So you would think, all right, well, then that's what they're going to do. They're going to go to LA, have maybe a 2.5 hour layover, think 3 hours tops. Would have been great. We would have been there 3 hours earlier, right? So it feels like that would be what we wanted to do. But that flight was $300 or $400 more per person. So I thought about it and I was like, let's just go to Seattle. I haven't been to Washington, and I still don't count that I've been to Washington. That's going to be next year when we fly in early for our Alaskan cruise. The boys, they kind of count it because they count airports. That's a whole nother debate. But we were going to have a 6-hour layover, which I hoped would be enough time to get out of the airport, maybe go see some things, maybe the Space Needle. It's not, because the airport is 40 minutes from downtown. By the time you got there and got out, and you'd have to deal with your luggage, putting it up. And then what if you got stuck in traffic downtown to and from? It would not have been worth it. We just stayed in the airport, and I found us some interesting things to see and some good places to eat, both on the way there and on the way back. So a 6-hour layover after flying 5 hours from Atlanta. We made it to Seattle, 6-hour layover, and then another 6-hour flight nonstop then from Seattle to Kauai with nothing provided but pretzels and soda or water. So you definitely want to eat before you get on that flight, or bring food with you. If you were in anything other than first class, you will not get anything besides your basic snacks, packaged snacks. It's a long flight for not getting anything but pretzels. Okay, so that's one way I'd say we saved, by having the longer layover, which was definitely hard on the return when we had to fly overnight. And then we arrived at like 7 a.m. for a 6-hour layover. But it was, it saved us over $1,000 in the long run. Okay, our condo. So I feel like that's a great way, if you're experiencing Kauai, to have a condo, if you want to save some money by buying groceries and then cooking in the condo. That's what a lot of people do, or they'll grill out. There's grills provided. It was a full kitchen, a full refrigerator. We have seating in a dining room area, a balcony. Our balcony was overlooking the ocean, so that was amazing. But we saved with the condo because this was part of our vacation club. So that definitely helped in the long run. Otherwise, you could expect for a condo similar to ours, it was around $500 a night I priced out. So if you're going for a full week in a condo, you're probably looking around $3,500 for the week, which is a big expense. And then you're just getting started. All right. But again, $3,500, you could spend $3,500 on a condo in Florida for a week easily. Easily could do that. So that part was not the shocking part. It would be the food costs that really would start to add up. Okay, so that's another save, was our condo. Another thing we did for a whole day, and I'm going to have an entire episode about the Shaka app. If you've never heard of it and you love national parks, you want to go ahead and give this a look. But I had it recommended to me when we were going to Waimea Canyon because they were not going to have service there. So you weren't going to get cell service. With the Shaka app, you have it downloaded. It is a self-guided tour telling you all the stops, all the turns, things that you don't want to miss, things that you're like, okay, if you don't have much time, this is something you could skip, where to eat, what to do, when to be there. It was fantastic. I think it was like a 57 or 58 point schedule for what all we could see for our Waimea Canyon Day, including some great recommendations for stops and restaurants and what to prepare for food-wise. So, and I think it was a sale the day that we purchased it, maybe only like $25, I think, for that app for Waimea Canyon. You could do all of Hawaii, and it was a package deal, or there were the big national parks within the U.S. now. That is something that every national park we go to that has the Shaka app option, I'm going to get it from now on. So I think that was a great way we saved. Instead of having a private tour, we just had that app and it told us where to go each step of the way. For the cost of a guidebook, a new guidebook, you could just download the Shaka app. Okay, Kauai Coffee Company Visitor Center, free. You could go to the visitor center for free, see the grounds right outside the visitor center for free, even have coffee samples for free. So that was a great save. I'll share my splurge with you, which is in the same location on the next section. All right, food trucks, the best bang for your buck. To get an authentic experience, this is where the locals will eat too, are all the different food trucks. And the portions are really good at most of these, that sometimes you could even split meals at the food trucks. That will be a way to help keep costs down. We did not split meals, but when we got the pad thai, I easily could have split that with Christian. We could have shared a portion because we could not eat even half of that amount. Another thing, brunch was a way we saved. Here's where we don't save. My boys will happily eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So 3 meals a day we realized was going to really push our budget. So there are some meals we're like, okay, we're going to have brunch, and then we're going to have an afternoon snack, like maybe shaved ice, and then we'll have a big dinner. And that helped on some days. We didn't do that every day, but on the days I really wanted breakfast, when the boys would have been fine with a granola bar or a muffin or something, but I wanted an actual breakfast, we'd have to turn that into brunch with a snack. Our bike rental was a really good value, I feel like, for 2 hours. I think it was $25 a person. So that was a save. And we spent the morning riding bikes right outside of our condo, beautiful coastline views, mountains and water, beaches, fantastic. The luau show. Now, we went to Smith's Family Garden Luau, which was ranked number 1 on the island of Kauai. We did the show only, which was only about $35 per person, adults and kids. For younger kids, there are different prices, but for adults only and for kids our ages, it was right at $35 per person. This was for the full show. And we arrived around 7:30, got to take a small tour through the grounds. Like they had shuttles, open air shuttles that took us to the garden, open air amphitheater. But we did not eat the meal there. They have a full meal that you can have ahead of time with drinks included. That would be under the splurge. And we did not do that. It was $150 per person. And that included the show and the meal, but it was not going to be worth it for us because I'm a vegetarian. Christian is a part-time vegetarian. Logan and London would have probably gotten their money's worth possibly, but we decided we would go eat beforehand. And for the cost of one of us eating at the luau, we were able to all 4 of us eat. And then we did the show only, which is the part I really wanted to experience. And it was amazing, completely worth it. Book ahead of time. We did a ukulele lesson, like I shared a few weeks ago. It was $25 per person for an hour lesson. But here's where the real value came in. Our instructor let us keep the ukuleles for the rest of our stay. at the resort where we could practice. So we could play on the lanai, we could play in a hammock with the ukuleles and the songbooks. So we got several days out of that experience instead of just the 1 hour lesson, which in and of itself I thought was a great experience. The swinging bridge that we did in Hanapepe, no cost. Lots of great hiking trails, most of which are not going to have an additional cost. In Waimea Canyon, there was a $5 per person one-time fee and I believe $10 per car fee. So I think we were at $30 for the day spending in Waimea Canyon. And also we had the Shaka app. So going to the beaches, they're all free public beaches. One of them, which we did not do, you do have to have a ticket for. And I don't believe it's much, but it's just harder to get that timed entry. And there were so many beaches we wanted to go to anyways where I wouldn't have to worry about that timing that I just did not do that this trip. Maybe the next one that'll be on my list. Okay, so some splurge things that we did do or some things even that we didn't. Like I mentioned already, if you did the full luau, that would have been $150 per adult. With the children our ages, it would not have been much different in price. The Jeep, we had to rent a vehicle. So that's the save part. Renting a vehicle is just something you have to do to get around Kauai. What we didn't have to do is do the upgrade for the Jeep. And it was totally worth it, and I'm glad we splurged because we drove every day. Every day we were going multiple times in the Jeep. It was totally worth it. Gas is a necessity. We were looking at about $5.76 per gallon. So you're right at $6 a gallon for gas. Eating at any restaurant is a splurge in Kauai, but especially Duke's, where we went our last night. That was our most expensive meal of the trip. And just to give you an idea, I tell everybody, we did not have an appetizer. We did each have salads, and their salad bar was phenomenal, and it was completely worth it. So we did that instead of a separate appetizer. We had water to drink. We did not do soda. We did not have Mai Tais. We just had water, and we shared one slice of hula pie, which was delicious. And we were $250 for that meal. Now, it was beautiful. So I'm just saying it is Disney pricing, every meal you eat. So if you're in that mindset, okay, you just need to be in that mindset that we weren't even going to the fanciest of restaurants by any stretch of the imagination. But we're talking your middle family restaurants that also were well known. So I would say, you're looking at mid to high mid-range is kind of where I stay, with the exception of then I love local places, so the food trucks kind of balance it out. But that was on the higher end. We did not have a meal really under $100 unless over the hot dogs, which is the most expensive hot dogs we ever had, but also the best. The hot dogs were $12 each, which for a hot dog, that's a lot. But again, best hot dog ever. So there is that, but you're going to spend your money on food here for sure. Another splurge was the Hanalei Bay 1 Hotel. I love dining al fresco. I love restaurants with a view. I love being beachfront. We went to the Lava Lava Beach Club for dinner one night. And it was dark and I didn't even see the beach, but I knew it was there. So I would have gone there earlier if I went again to make sure. But it was a late night decision and we had to find somewhere that was open, and we went and we really loved it and we really liked the vibe. Every restaurant we ate at was going to be around $150 to $200. So that's something to prepare for. That's the splurge. Our sunset dinner cruise with Captain Andy's. Amazing. It was our biggest splurge of the trip, with $250 per adult, $210 per child. They had an onboard chef, 4-course meal. You're going and seeing the Nepali coast. You did not snorkel on this one. You could do a snorkeling one that was earlier that included lunch, or you could do the sunset dinner. And we did the sunset dinner, and you could choose between steak, seafood, which I believe was mahi-mahi, or the vegetarian, which was a portobello grilled mushroom with asparagus. Everything was excellent. So we got our dinner, and all your drinks were included for the evening, a tour, the boat ride, and it was, I think, 4 hours. So it was a great overall experience, but it was definitely one of our splurge activities. The mountain tubing adventure, $169 per person. So here's what I want people to know. So many people, and this is what we're going to talk about next week, I get asked on a weekly basis where I would stay in Hawaii, or what all-inclusives should I go to in Hawaii, or Hawaii versus the Caribbean. And so we're going to talk about this next week in detail. We're going to compare Hawaii with St. Lucia. And we're going to look at the similarities and the differences. But here's what you need to know about Hawaii. There are no all-inclusives in Hawaii. And so you may pay less on the front end for where you're staying, like your condo. But by the time you add all these activities and food, it's going to really add up. So that's what I just wanted you to know when traveling with a family, to keep this in mind. Also, we did a private tour at the coffee estate, $50 per adult, $45 per child. It was such a great experience because it was an hour tour, behind the scenes, open air, tram experience. We're in the back of a truck, open air, but it was really nice, where we got a guided tour and got to see kind of like from beginning to end the whole process of growing the coffee beans, picking them, roasting them, and then the visitor center where you could try the different cups of coffee featured each day. That was a great experience. And the other thing that we did, so everything else I really planned except for the coffee private tour. And then we went to the Allerton Garden guided tour. This is what we did our last day, because your last day that you're flying home from Kauai, you don't leave until that night. Same with if you're flying in and out of Honolulu, the flights leave in the evening. So you have that whole day that you're going to fly where you could do something. And if you're like my husband, Logan, you're not going to want to get wet the day that you're flying. So he is not going to want to be at a pool, not going to want to be at the beach. He's going to want to stay dry. So I also needed something to do for the full day because we could not stay at the resort. Our checkout time was at 10. So what do you do for that day? Well, I found a botanical garden that was going to have a full tour. It was going to be, I think, 2.5 hour tour that was going to include 2 different gardens. And also you got to go to where Jurassic Park was filmed, and you get to see the different locations throughout the gardens and some other movies that were also filmed there. And so it was completely worth it. It was $65 per adult, which is on the very high end for a botanical garden, because normally the botanical gardens would be on my save section. And because that's a great experience we like to do in almost every place we go. If they have a botanical gardens, I'm there. I love them, and I think they're a great value. This is an exception. It is the most expensive botanical gardens I have personally ever been to. But I'm still glad we went, and it was a great experience for the day that we were flying back home. That is all the time we have for this week's episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate. I know we talked a lot about the numbers, but I wanted you to really see the value for what you were getting ahead of time and what you were going to need to add later once you were there. So you can kind of budget and have an idea of what a trip to Hawaii would cost, which is going to really help when we talk next week, comparing Hawaii with St. Lucia. Wherever you go, whatever you do, life is an adventure. Make those memories, take the trip. You won't regret it. Let's turn someday into today.
This show is made possible by JC Media, LLC in Ripley, Mississippi. JC Media owns the Shark 102.3 Classic Rock FM radio station where the show is hosted. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app or stream episodes online at shark1023.com/podcast. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That email is theshark1023@gmail.com.